at least unsolved till now. The victim, Larry Burt from Ramsgate in Kent, was so well liked, according to a friend, we'll probably have to have St Paul's Cathedral for the funeral.
Larry, you got those invoices?
Won't be a minute. Janet, can you come and have a look at this? The dropout's far too high in this relay. You reckon it's that one? All right.
Larry Burt worked as a quality assurance controller. Part of his job was to test products before they were sent out to clients.
What could I do without you? Shouldn't that stay here? Thank you. Open your eyes. Can you hear me? Obviously not. Right, he's unconscious. What do we do now?
Mouth to mouth.
You're jumping the gun. We've got to check for breathing first.
Larry was a branch officer of the Red Cross and twice a year led courses in first aid.
I run the Red Cross here in Margate. I very often help Larry with his lectures. He was full of fun, he was loved by his students, and many of them have stayed friends over the years.
Now, clearly there's nothing happening to this poor chap. So, only then do you follow the ventilation procedures. Right, change the subject. I need a casualty. Who fancies being tied up? Jean?
Oh, dear.
Need a hand?
Larry! How are you doing?
You just got back then?
What's this then? Slimming again?
Done it for the week, my engine blew up.
We've known Larry now for about 25 years. He lost his parents during the war in an air raid, and now, of course, his adopted parents are also dead. So he was totally alone. He had no relatives at all, and he just adopted practically everybody of his friends as relatives, and he had a heck of a lot of friends.
Yes, in fact, I would say that his death has been a great personal tragedy to a great many people. We had an awful lot in common.
He had a common interest in art, didn't you?
Oh, yes, we had a common interest in art. Lots of things we were interested in and encouraged to be interested in by Larry.
He introduced us to bird watching, basically.
Yes, you know, he was enthusiastic about all sorts of things, and he managed to convey it to people. He had a zest for life, without a doubt.
Oh, well, look, I won't see you tomorrow, because I'm going up London to have a mooch around. Gonna take this on the train. So, I'm going to see you Sunday, though.
Right.
Okay,
fine.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
On Saturday, the 26th of February, Larry boarded the 9:52 from Dumpton Park to London.
Morning tickets, please.
Oh, sorry, cheap day return to Victoria, please.
£15.70. Thank you.
It's not known where in London Larry meant to visit, but he clearly intended to return that same day.
Ticket. Morning tickets, please.
20 minutes later, the same guard, Ian Williams, remembers seeing someone sitting opposite Larry.
Although I didn't see them talking, it looked to me as if I'd interrupted something. I remember she had a 5-day return London to Whitstable.
Larry was just the sort of person who might have started up a conversation with a stranger. If that woman was you, and if he mentioned his plans for the day, it's obviously important. At any rate, please call us. Larry visited London every couple of months, but from here it's all conjecture. He probably cycled from Victoria out towards the East End. In the past, he's talked of visiting St Catherine's Dock, as another of his interests was boats and chandlery. Maybe you saw Larry cycling around Wapping that afternoon. In Wapping High Street stands the Town of Ramsgate pub. Larry may have been there in the past. Did you see him here in February? Larry had binoculars for bird watching and was an accomplished photographer. He was also a remarkable artist and would often turn his drawings into cards for his friends. Perhaps you noticed Larry by the river that afternoon. With his sketchpad, camera and binoculars, he would have been distinctive. The next day, overlooking the river at the rear of a warehouse known as the Old Pump House in St Catherine's Way in Wapping, Larry's body was discovered. It's likely he was murdered in this yard above the river, probably the day before. He'd been strangled.
In fact, Dave, Inspector Michael, he was strangled with a scarf left at the scene, identical to this one. And it wasn't his scarf?
No, it wasn't his scarf. The person who strangled him would have been the owner of that scarf. The scarf was well worn, so they've had it for some time, and we'd like anybody who knows somebody who went out with a scarf similar to this, who came home without it, to get in touch with us.
26th of February, Saturday 26th of February, possibly Sunday the 27th of February. The bike that Larry had is missing. I mean, it's conceivable that whoever killed him came home with a bike as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a metallic blue Man's Abbey Racer Tourer bicycle. It was modified since Larry had it, and it had chrome mudguards, back pannier, and the handlebar tape was blue.
Now, what other things were taken? Because you suspect the motive is robbery, and quite a lot of belongings disappeared.
There's a good chance. We would really like anybody who knows about the other missing property, which includes a Swallow binoculars, which is adjustable.
Like these?
That's correct.
These are 8x21s.
Yes, also a 35mm automatic compact camera with built-in zoom lens. His personal belongings in his wallet, identity cards, a black rucksack with possibly sketching materials. Anybody who's had this property, who knows anything about it, please get in touch with us.
In truth, knowing that the stuff was stolen, they might be quite reluctant to get in touch with you if it's passed through their hands. They don't want to be done for receiving stolen property.
Okay. Obviously, that's quite understandable, but really we're just concerned with Larry's murder, and we would encourage these people to come forward. Please get in touch with us.
Now, since you don't know really where he went between Victoria Station and being found near St Catherine's Dock, you need to find anybody who met him at all that day, or perhaps any other day in London when he was on his...
We know he had a good knowledge of Wapping, the East End. Also, he had a broader knowledge of London. But anybody who was with him that weekend, or knows anybody who was with Larry, please get in touch with us.
Inspector, thank you. If you can help in any way with this case, the number here in the studio is 0500 600 600, or you can ring the incident room direct. That's on 071 488 5241. 071 488 5241.
We're just getting information through at the moment that we've had a caller who already believes that they know who one of the robbers is and has given police a name, so that one's being followed up at the moment. Our next case is the murder of Michael Williams 10 weeks ago. He was last seen alive on the Friday evening before the August bank holiday weekend. His body was found early next morning in Highgate Wood in North London, close to where he lived. But police need to know where he went and what happened to him during the course of that night. Michael was 43. He'd lived in Highgate all his life, and he was an active member of the local church. He'd been married for 18 years and had a 2-year-old daughter. Michael was always keen to spend as much time as he could with her and worked flexi hours and often came home early to look after her. Our reconstruction begins in Pimlico in South London, where Michael worked. He was employed by the Home Office here at Horseferry House, where he'd helped set up the police national computer. Ironically, the very system which is now being used to help track down whoever killed him. It's Friday the 26th of August.
Hello, it's me.
Another hour or so. Should be home about 8.
Okay, I'll put Marie to bed then. We'll see you later.
Michael had been under a lot of pressure at work, and for the past week he'd been staying late every evening to finish a particular project.
We're off to the Paviers for a few drinks. Coming?
Oh, lucky for some. No, I've still got work to do.
Oh, come on. You've got 3 whole days off.
Why not?
I'll wait outside.
See you in a while.
So instead of going straight home that night, he came here to the Paviers Arms in Pimlico.
Let's do a bit of music. Do a bit in the garden.
Yeah. Would you like another drink?
No, thanks.
No,
you sure?
Not for me either, thanks.
Oh, God, is that the time? No, I said I'd be home at 8-ish.
Yeah, it's about time to go. So you're going on the tube?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll come with you.
Come in. Bye, all. See you next week.
Bye.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
So, did you change? Yes, I did, but it's late. No problem.
Right, well, this is where I change. So, see you, Michael. Have a nice weekend.
That was the last time anyone he knew saw him alive. From now, we can only speculate about where Michael went next. If he'd taken his usual journey home, he'd have continued on the Victoria line as far as Warren Street or Euston, where he would have changed onto the Northern line. By then, it would have been about midnight. From here, he'd get on the Northern line to Highgate. But it's by no means certain that he did take his usual route home that night. Perhaps he met someone along the way. Police need to talk to anyone who may have seen him. If he did come to Highgate Station, his walk home would have taken him past Highgate Wood. Or he may have gone one step further along the Northern line to East Finchley, because someone who looked like Michael was seen there at about 12:30 by a ticket collector.
Evening. Which way to the Lewis? Toilets are closed here, Gov. Okay.
If that was Michael, where did he go next? Was he planning to walk home from here? This is Highgate Wood, a popular spot even early in the mornings.
Well, then, let's go home.
It's the next day, Saturday morning. At about 8:20, a woman walking her dog saw something lying by the path leading to the wood. It was Michael Williams' body. He'd been killed by a single blow to the throat.
Yankee Romeo from 559. Can you call the CID? I found a dead body in the alleyway off of Lanchester Road N6.
Police need to know whether he was killed there or whether his body was left there later. Several people who'd used the path even earlier that morning didn't see the body, so it's vital that more witnesses come forward to help work out what did happen. At 6 o'clock that morning, this man was walking his dog near the woods past the spot where Michael's body was found. He saw nothing there, but then just round the corner, something odd happened.
My dog's usually quiet, and she saw this man standing over there, run at him and barked at him hysterically. The man was standing there, absolutely immobile, and looked as if he was hypnotized under the influence of something. He was not moving at all. It was absolutely unreal how the man stood there and did not react to my dog, who was attacking him and barking at him.
Three-quarters of an hour later, as the gates to the wood were being unlocked for the day, the strange man had gone. And just 5 minutes after that, there was still nothing seen by the path. So police believe it must have been between 7 o'clock and 7:40 that his body was put there. It may have been dumped from a car. And there's a postscript. This is the New Argent Tandoori restaurant in Fry and Barnet Road in Southgate. The day after Michael's body was found, someone came into the restaurant and paid by credit card.
Your bill, sir.
Well, that card, of course, belonged to Michael Williams. Peter Wilton, Michael had been robbed of all the property he had on him. Was robbery the motive, do you think?
That certainly was one motive, but this case has homosexual connotations. He was a bisexual. It may well be that he met somebody and left somebody before he got attacked. I would like that person to come forward, or any person that was attacked in the locality that hasn't reported it before. Will they please come forward?
What description do you have of that strange man seen standing at 6 o'clock in the morning in Highgate Wood in some kind of trance?
Yes, he's never been identified. He's 6 foot tall, white man, slim build, blondish brown hair, with a beard of the same colouring.
Complete mystery, that. Whoever murdered Michael, was he a karate expert?
Could well be. We've spoken to several karate experts, and they say it would take several years of experience to deliver a blow such as that, because there was a lot of force used to Michael Williams' throat. Is murder, and very nearly multiple murder. For whoever killed a local government official 4 months ago almost blew up a block of flats and all its residents. The dead man was Bulic Forsythe. Detectives hope tonight to find the motive and the culprit.
Is anyone in there?
Well, I don't know. Mr. Forsythe lives there. If he's in or not, I don't know.
Oh, there's someone in there. Get a move on. Lock in here, Tom! Where's the police now? Lock it out! We've got a body in here, Tom! There's a body in here, Gov!
One man found in back bedroom, apparently dead.
The fire had been started deliberately. The dead man was 42-year-old Bulic Forsythe, and he'd been murdered, beaten repeatedly and savagely around the head.
Morning.
Morning.
Oh, Edna. I've just walked through the car park. It's a complete mess. There's cars blocking in social work.
Bulic worked for Lambeth Social Services at our headquarters in Clapham for over 4 years. Although he was considered by some people to be rather overzealous, in fact his bark was much worse than his bite.
This morning I came through the yard. There were cars wrongly parked, blocking other people in. Social services cars can't get out in an emergency.
Amongst his responsibilities were premises management of some 10 social services buildings around the borough. He was a very conscientious and efficient office manager. And in fact, senior management in social services often asked him to write important policy documents on health and safety procedures. I would say that he had a very genuine concern for the welfare of staff.
Hello? Yes, yes. Bulic Forsythe speaking.
We generally heard very little from him about his private life. Really, he kept very much to himself on those matters.
Bulic moved to Foster Court in South London 4 years ago. In 1990, he'd married an American, but he loved his job too much to emigrate. So his wife, now pregnant, was planning to join him in Britain.
fine, thank you, Mrs. Harris.
Their baby was due in May.
I'm so overjoyed at the moment to think that at 42 I'll be having my first child with you.
He was very excited. I said, Dee, I can't believe this. At my age, I'm going to be a father. He said, somebody up there must love me. I said, please, don't you tell anyone until I'm sure. But I guess I should have told him to tell the world, because as soon as I hung up, he called my mom, he called his friends, and I heard he went to the pub, and he told everyone. Bulic was easygoing, loved to party, loved his music, and loved to play pool. And I guess on his job, most people never saw that side of him.
In fact, while Dawn was in America, Bulic, or John as some friends knew him, may have been quite lonely. Few colleagues at work were close to him, but he had several friends from Clapham, some from the gay scene, and several visited his flat. Please call if you knew him. For some months before his death, Bulic had often been seen with two men at an off-licence just across the road from his flat. One man always stood near the doorway, while the other seemed equally keen not to be recorded by the shop's security camera. The owner remembers this man as scruffy in blue, tight-fitting jeans and a casual jacket. He was about 25 years old, 6 feet tall, with blue eyes and unkempt fair hair.
Are you up already, Bulic? It's only 4:45.
Yes, I've just finished working on this report now, and I've been at it for 6 weeks, but it's all done. Really pleased. So I'm going to get an early night.
Bulic was last seen alive leaving the council offices around 5 p.m. on Wednesday, February the 24th.
Every morning I hear the alarm of Mr. Forsythe go off, because my bedroom is above his bedroom. But this morning I didn't hear the alarm. And then when I went out at 9 o'clock, I saw his curtains open. That was unusual, because mostly his curtains are drawn at that time in the morning.
Edna, have you seen Bulic this morning?
Is he expecting you?
Well, not really, but I'm a little bit worried. He's normally here by now.
While his colleagues were trying to contact him, Bulic's flat may have been having visitors. A local resident recalls,
I was going over the paper shop to buy a paper, and I saw 3 men was coming out of Foster Court round the front there. They was carrying some briefcase and some folders in their hands. Why I noticed them? Because they look official. I never saw them here before.
if you were one of those 3 men, the police would dearly like to hear from you. 4 hours later, just before 2 o'clock, the same resident who'd seen visitors at the front noticed something unusual at the back of Bulic's flats.
I saw a white car parked there in the corner with 2 men sitting in it, and they was gazing at me. They're well dressed, and one of them have black hair, the other one have a brownish hair. I live here for 18 years and I never see a car parked there before.
Mike, I'm getting concerned about Bulic. I'm going to go around to the flat later, see if he's okay.
When she got there at 5 p.m, Bulic's curtains had been closed. Someone had obviously been in the flat that day.
Bulic! Bulic! Are you in there? Open the door, Bulic!
Bulic was probably inside, but almost certainly now dead. Then, later on that night, a resident in Foster Court was disturbed by a commotion.
It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember looking at the clock. I heard running at the back of the flats, quite heavy footsteps.
The gas failed to explode, and Bulic's neighbour woke up an hour later.
Oh my God, there's a fire. Fire brigade. Fire brigade.
Please call. I would like to know why he was murdered. And for my sake, my baby's sake, and his family, we all want to know why.
If you know anything that could suggest a motive for Bulic Forsythe's death, do please ring. And would this man, a friend perhaps called Steve, who's maybe a bicycle courier, call as well? Or were you one of the 2 friends seen with Bulic in the off-licence? Can you help eliminate the 3 men who were leaving Foster Court? We know some documentation is missing from Bulic's flat. It could be personal or it could be connected with his work. Do you know where it is? Or have you been offered Bulic's watch, a silver Rolex Oyster model R16220A7? Who would be so crazy as to set fire to a building in the dead of night with families asleep in all the other flats? Detective Superintendent Brian Tompkins is waiting for your call, or you can ring another number, the Murder Inquiry Room at Gypsy Hill, 071 32612.
Our first case tonight has been baffling police for the past 3 months, simply because all their investigations have failed to reveal any possible motive. It's the murder of 47-year-old Derick Kiley at his flat in South London. By all accounts, he was a man with many friends and no enemies that anyone's been able to discover. Derick's girlfriend died last year, and our reconstruction begins at Hither Green Cemetery in southeast London. Derick was an immensely private person. He'd had a girlfriend for 2 years, but few of his friends knew about her until she died suddenly of a heart attack last November, aged only 37. His brother remembers Derick was devastated.
Derick was really, really broke up. I've never seen him like this. He couldn't speak. He didn't seem to know what day it was. He was definitely in shock. To see him upset like that, falling apart, you know, he really was a bad scene for me and for Derick, I think. We lost touch over the years, and we was just getting back together again, which would have been terrific. He was a good guy, Dale. I mean, he'd do things like, he'd stop the traffic to let an old lady across the road. He was a real old softy, really, although he didn't give that in his appearance.
Derick, or Del as he was known to his friends and family, had spent most of his life in South London. He'd lived in his flat in Harpenden Road in West Norwood for more than 10 years.
Yeah, tell me about it. Look, don't worry yourself. Yeah, well, look, we'll sort something out. Well, leave it to me. Hang on, mate, look, I've got to go. There's someone at the door. I'll bill you later, yeah? Ta-da.
Derick's friends knew they were always welcome to drop in for a chat.
Hello, Juice.
Hi, Ben.
Come in, you.
He used to actually call his flat the Haven. It was where people could go with their problems. I've known Dale for about 4 years. He was a very good friend to me. He was a very good friend to everybody. But although he did have a lot of friends, I felt that in the last 6 months he did get quite lonely, and he seemed quite desperate for people to be around him. In actual fact, he seemed quite frightened of being on his own.
While people confided in him, Derick kept his own problems very much to himself. But there's no doubt that something had been worrying him.
Before you threw that out?
Now I've stuck it back together again. Painted the flowers on myself. It's all right, isn't it?
He was always mending things, always fixing things. I used to call him Mr. Fix-It.
You want a rollie?
No, no. He used to spend most of his time actually in his flat. He used to call it his control centre, because where he used to sit, he had everything to hand. His remote control, his answering machine, and his telephone.
Hello? Yeah, all right, mate. What's the mileage?
Derick's main love was cars, and he made a business of doing up and selling second-hand vehicles.
Yeah, we can do something, yeah. Consider it done.
He was a familiar sight in the street, working on various old cars outside his house.
Hi, Del.
Hello, girl, how are you?
All right, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad. Hey, there's something I've got to say to you. That little cat of yours.
He was such a good neighbour to us. We used to say that the best things about West Norwood were the fishmonger and Del.
It cost me a fortune in cat food as well.
I had a smash in my car, and Del just completely took over. He just did everything.
Oh, it's really good since you fixed it.
Yeah, well, you should get onto the garage, you know. They ripped you off something rotten.
Yeah, I know. I keep meaning to ring them.
Yeah, we'll do it and let me know what they say.
He was a real mixture. I mean, he came across as really macho, and yet you'd go round there and he'd be doing watercolours of cottages and sailing ships, which came as a real surprise. You know, it was quite a contrast to his image. I mean, I think he thought he was quite hard, but I certainly never saw him being aggressive, and he was a real honey to us.
It's just after New Year, Sunday the 2nd of January. A neighbour remembers seeing a man coming from the direction of Derick's house that night and getting into a black 7 Series BMW. The witness describes the man as of Asian appearance with a ponytail and in his mid-20s. The next afternoon, around 3:30, a local man remembers seeing Derick in the street.
I was walking up Oldswater Road towards Harpenden Road when I saw him talking to a man in a light blue Sierra. The man he was talking to had slick back hair and a ponytail. He was about in his mid-30s and had Mediterranean-type skin. I also remember that the car tax was out of date.
Later that same evening, Derick was at a pie stall in Crystal Palace Parade, a few miles from where he lived.
Tea and coffee?
Yeah, please, Ron.
Well, Dill used to come up at night to see me on odd occasions, have a chat. All right, Dill.
Not really.
But on this occasion he come up, he looked down and out and didn't seem that he was in his right mind. Something was worrying him. He said to me, "I'll see you later," and then off he went. That was the last time I see him.
That was the last time anyone is known to have seen Derick alive. Half an hour later, back in Harpenden Road, it's shortly after midnight. This woman lives a few doors away from Derick's flat.
I heard what I thought was a woman scream. I went to the window and looked out, but I couldn't see anything. So I decided, as it was a woman that I thought had screamed, I'd go outside and check it out. I went out, had a good look round. I couldn't see anything, so I decided I'd better go back home.
The shouting seemed to have come from the general direction of Derick's flat.
There's nobody available to speak to at the moment. If you'll leave your name and any message, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Del. I'm a bit worried about where you are. Give me a ring when you get back. Thanks, bye.
Over the next 3 days, Derick's friends became increasingly worried as he failed to return their calls. It was Thursday, January the 6th, when Derick's body was discovered in the flat. He died from multiple stab wounds.
I do honestly miss him so much. We had so much going then between us. We were very, very close, and I think he was going to come back into the family, and we could have been a family again. It would have been tremendous to have had Del back. All I can say is I do really miss him very much.
Well, Mr. Younger, as I said at the beginning, you've been really struggling to find a motive here.
That's right. We don't know why anyone would want to kill Derick Kiley, but I'm sure somebody does know, and that would greatly assist us in finding out who did kill Derick.
There were a few things stolen from his flat.
Yes, there was a black bag containing a large amount of cash and a wristwatch, quite an antique-type wristwatch, about 1935s. It's slightly more oblong than the one being shown, but in point of fact, it was very valuable.
So this watch could be really vital. It's interesting that we actually couldn't find one identical, but it's an oval version of this.
Yes.
There's no manufacturer's mark on it.
No, that's right. But if anyone's been offered that, certainly since the 6th of January, we'd certainly like to hear from them.
It could be very helpful. But you don't actually believe that robbery was the primary motive for Derick's murder?
No, Derick was a very cautious man, and he wouldn't let anyone into his flat unless he knew them, and certainly there was no forcible entry, so I'm convinced that he knew his attacker, whoever it was.
And whoever did attack him stabbed him many, many times, so there'd have been quite a lot of blood.
Yes, I would appeal again to anyone who, on the early hours of Tuesday, the 4th of January, came home with blood-stained clothing. There must be someone out there to whom that would apply, and if someone could ring in with that information, we'd be most grateful.
The one person you know so far that you need to eliminate is the Asian man with the ponytail who was seen coming from the direction of Derick's flat on the 2nd of January in the evening.
Yes, we know he was a regular visitor. He may have nothing to do with the murder of Derick Kiley, but we'd still like to trace this individual to eliminate him and find out what Derick was doing on the Sunday.
And we've got a description of him.
That's right. He's about 25 years of age, slim build, 6 foot tall, and the video fit is a good likeness to him.
Now, if anybody can help in this case, there's a reward as well, isn't there?
There is a very substantial reward offered by Crime Stoppers. Yes, that's right.
Well, if you can help with any information to take this investigation further, please do ring us. The number here in the studio is 0500 600 600, or you can contact Gypsy Hill Police Station direct, and that number is 071 326 1212.
A businesswoman, Jean Bradley, was murdered beside her car in a suburb of West London. The tragedy made front-page headlines because it seemed so similar to another notorious and unsolved murder that happened 2 years earlier. The victim then was Penny Bell. In fact, detectives are reasonably confident there's no link whatsoever. But they do think Crimewatch viewers may be able to solve Jean Bradley's murder. And you're about to hear from 3 crucial witnesses and see for the first time a portrait of the killer. Jean Bradley lived in Crowthorne, Berkshire, with a teacher, Nicholas Osborne.
Yes, sunny.
I last spoke to Jean on the Sunday before she was killed. I was in Rome with the school trip.
What did the forum look like?
So she particularly asked me to check Rome out thoroughly because a week after I was due back, both of us were off to holiday in Rome during Easter week it was going to be. And she was actually very much looking forward to that.
Jean specialised in helping companies move premises. Her own office was in New Bond Street, 30 miles from her home.
When she moved to her new job in London, we had some trouble working out the best way to commute in.
Acton Town Station is just around the corner.
But she found that the best way was to drive halfway in and then take the fast tube line from Acton.
Couldn't be more convenient, could it?
Seems a nice, respectable road.
Think the car would be safe here?
Jean was very keen to keep her car immaculate, and certainly the reason why we checked out the roads in which she parked her car was for the safety of the car. We had no idea, no views on sort of her own personal safety. It just simply wasn't that sort of area.
Jean had left work and travelled home on the Piccadilly line from Green Park Station. She arrived at Acton Town at about 7:20. Also driving home just then was a local carpenter. Jean had stopped off en route to buy a couple of cans of drink. Another commuter remembers passing her in Gunnersbury Gardens, and she recalls that no one else was in the street. Jean had parked her BMW in Carberry Avenue, just off Gunnersbury Gardens. It had been there since 7:30 that morning.
As I was driving down Carberry Avenue, I seen a man and a woman tugging at each other on the pavement. I see it was pretty serious, as the man was holding the woman down and kind of like standing all over her.
You kill him!
A woman and her son passing in a Ford Escort were able to follow the attacker.
I said to my son, oh, he looks as though he's done something. Come on, we'll follow him and see where he's going. He's quite a tall man and taking long strides, but he wasn't actually running away in any great hurry. He looked really odd because he had a silly hat on that looked a bit like a sou'wester. It's not the type of hat that you would wear around this part of the world. I was halfway down Gunnersbury Gardens when I was aware of this white van rushing up behind me, and I sensed that he was in a great hurry to overtake.
I think you better go and ring the police.
All right, Ned. You just attacked a woman back there. Do you want to try it on with me now? Come on.
The man was very pale. His cheeks were very drawn in, and he had a darkish stubble, possibly 2 days' growth. He was very cold. He could stare right through you. As he came towards me, he raised his hand, which had a black bag wrapped. I didn't know what he had in it. It seemed pretty rigid.
The two men ran off into Gunnersbury Lane, just off the North Circular Road. The woman in the Ford Escort was able to get ahead of them.
I had a very good look at the tall man as he was approaching me to cross the road. He was a good 6 foot to 6'3". The van driver was a pace or two behind him.
That man there, he's after attacking a woman. Call the police.
At this point, I decided it was best to go home and make sure that my son had called the police, and I just watched them head off towards Acton Town Station.
Police badly need to trace everyone who saw this chase, including people the carpenter called upon to help.
This white Golf convertible came down on the road. He was a Rastafarian, and I was asking him to give me a hand.
Can you give me a hand? What's he look like? He's got a white coat and a black hat. Can you give me? Oh, forget about it.
The chase had now been going on for nearly a mile.
I think the tall man thought he lost me. I hid behind a tree and hid behind a car and things like that, the way he wouldn't think I was following him. He didn't look back very often.
The attacker went into South Acton Estate. It was nearly 7:45 and several more witnesses now must have seen him. Police need all these people to come forward. Attempts to revive Jean failed. She died of multiple stab wounds from an 8-inch blade. At the edge of the estate, the carpenter almost caught up with her killer.
He looked back and saw me, and he started to run again. I thought all along that he wasn't a very fit man, because when he came to the end of the estate, there was a railing, and normally if you were a fit person, you'd jump it. But he didn't jump. I went to run across the road, and this car came around, possibly a trampoline. I hesitated because it was a bit close and didn't slow down. I ran. He ran right around the corner. When I got down to the corner, raggedy close, I could not see the man anymore.
But unknown to the carpenter, one man had a clear view of the killer's next move.
The man I saw was definitely on edge because he was moving backwards and forwards in the doorway.
Go get the police.
He had a cream 3/4 length parka, jet black hair, black trousers. They were short because they were flapping above his ankles. He was definitely flat-footed. He was looking around him and trying to figure out which way would be the best way to get out of the estate. He was carrying a black bag in his right hand. He had a very, very tight grip on it, and he never let go of it once. I started to realise that there was something wrong, and by that time, the tall man had gone.
The attacker was last seen walking up Buckland Walk, 1.5 miles from where Jean Bradley had been stabbed. Bob Fenton, where did he go from Buckland Walk, do you know?
Well, he was heading towards Acton High Street, but I'm not only appealing for people in that general area, because he could have deviated off the route. I'm also appealing still for people who actually saw the carpenter chasing the man. That's from Carberry Avenue, past Acton Town Tube Station, and through the South Acton estate.
And we ought to make it clear, many of them wouldn't, or most of them wouldn't have had any idea what had happened. They wouldn't have realised why he was chasing him.
No, they wouldn't, but they would, if they were there, they would have probably noticed something going on.
What was this guy's motive? Have you any idea at all?
There's no apparent motive whatsoever. There is nothing stolen. He's certainly a strange character, and he's probably this man come to the notice of the national agencies for helping people, such as social services, psychiatric, drink, drugs, and maybe even he's bought his clothes in charity shops. That's the sort of thing we believe he's possibly doing.
So anybody who's a nurse or works in a rehabilitation unit or anything like that, not necessarily in this area, you really want them to rack their brains. Do they know him?
Yes, we're seeking help for anybody that
He's a sort of tall, thin, rather ungainly sort of fellow. What else do you know about him?
He's very, very, very gaunt man, and that sticks out most particular.
Doesn't he look after himself very well? A bit of a growth of beard. And...
Yes, he had about a 2 days growth of stubble. He's well described on the programme.
And this hat he was wearing, this is a fairly sort of similar sou'wester type of thing. Very weird because it was a dry night, very cold but dry.
Yes, it is a strange. Everyone's commented on this hat in particular, and obviously we would appeal to anyone that knows someone that fits a general description and has or even wears a similar hat.
Now, what's just emerged today, I think, is what could be a crucial clue, a fragment of plastic that you recovered from the murder scene. Now, describe why this is important. This bit that we're seeing here is the recovered fragment. It's what, about 8 inches, 8-9 inches across, 21 centimetres or so.
Yes, that's foreign to the scene. It doesn't come from the victim or anybody that attended the scene, so we can only assume it comes from the attacker. It's possible that this is part of a bag that was wrapped around the weapon, the knife that was used, and perhaps Jean, the victim, actually ripped and snatched it at the time of the attack.
Very distinctive, this sort of logo on it. And also, if it was your boutique this bag was part of, or your shop, or if you printed or made this bag, maybe you'll recognise this S. All the writing, the printing that's very small on there. As you can see, this shows where it was made and printed in the United, something like the United Arab Emirates, United States, United Kingdom, or something like that. And a potential
new witness that you're now trying to trace?
Yes, we now know that around the time the murder happened, there was a street vendor knocking door to door in Carberry Avenue. He's described as a 20-year-old. We don't think he's involved in any way whatsoever. I'm interested to speak to him because he could have seen this man loitering around. Clearly he was in the street for some time. I've got to point out, I'm not interested in prosecuting for any offences out of his trading from door to door. I simply want his information if he has any.
OK, this is 3 weeks ago tonight. Incidentally, there's a very substantial reward of £20,000. Also, if you live in the South Acton estate, there's a mobile police station on the estate. It's near the Prince of Wales pub at the corner of Church Road and Ragley Close, and it's open until 1 o'clock tonight. The lines here are open until at least midnight on 081 811 8181, 081 811 8181. If you think you recognise this man or can tell us anything about it. If you want to call the Murder Inquiry Room direct, the number there is 0895 2548.